TikTok, time to rock. How is everyone doing this beautiful quarantine season? If you're here, you probably already know that I am David Wood, and with me, I have my friend Husein. Husein, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. It's good to see you.
Yeah, Husein. Before we get started, you said you have been looking into Muhammad's night journey, and you have plenty of information, interesting stuff you'd like to share there. But before we get started, for everyone who doesn't know you, why don't you give us your background? And it's my program, sir. So I say on behalf of everyone, take as much time as you need here.
All right. Well, I think everybody knows me. No, just kidding.
Oh, wait. Hang on. I saw a comment. Someone just posted that I reached 100 million views. And I see that the Apostate Prophet is in the chat. So, Apostate Prophet, I just reached my milestone. I'm sure you are about to reach yours if you haven't already. So, let's get ready to rumble. 100 million, ladies and gentlemen. That's I'll probably make a separate video on that because that's pretty cool. First 100 million, first 100 million's hard. Second 100 million, easy. All right, floor is yours, Husein.
All right. Well, hopefully you'll get to the second 100 million tonight.
Right now.
Yes. Anyway, my name is, like you said, Husein. My nickname is Steve. Everybody calls me Steve, but my real name is Husein, which is my grandfather's name. My father is Palestinian. He's Muslim. And I was born in the United States in California, but I'm originally Palestinian. My mother is from Brazil, so I got a little combination Catholic from my mom, Muslim from my dad. But I was raised as a Muslim, and which meant mostly what it meant was that we just didn't eat pork, and we didn't have Bibles, we didn't go to church, we weren't allowed to have pictures of Jesus in the house, that type of thing, But when I was 9 years old, my parents divorced, and my father took me to his village, which is in the West Bank, near Jerusalem. And my village is called Der Dibwan, which in the Bible is Ai. It's the village of Ai in the Bible. And we have the ruins of Ai up on the hill. Tel Ai is what it's called in Arabic. And I lived there for several years. 3 to 4 years, and I was 9 years old at the time, and my village is completely Muslim and Arabic, so I went to school, started first, second, and third grade there so that I could learn Arabic, read, write, and of course to learn Islam. And I was very curious about Jesus, and so I was very interested to know what the Muslims taught about Jesus. And they told me that Jesus was a great prophet. His name is in Arabic is Isa, and they said that he did miracles, that he was born of a virgin, that he's coming back to judge the world. But there was a very strong emphasis in what we learned. One of the first surahs, the surah in the Quran, there's 114 surahs in the Quran. They go from long to short. And one of the shortest, but one of the most well-known is called Surah Al-Ikhlas, which is the surah of sincerity. And every Muslim learns it. And in Arabic, it says, "Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad," which means, say, Allah is one, He is unchanging, He doesn't give birth, and He wasn't born, and there's no one equal to Him. And so it's like, you're really, really a strong emphasis that Jesus is not the Son of God. That is considered the highest blasphemy is shirk, to say that somebody's equal to God. And that surah right there is the one that, is you find in almost every taxis have it. All the restaurants have it. It's very popular. And anyway, so I was very indoctrinated. I was 100% convinced that Islam is the true religion. I wanted to come back to America to convert Christians to Islam. And because I was afraid, I was worried about Christians that they're going to hell. And I did come back to the U.S. when I was 12 years old, and I continued in Islam. I was very devout, and I would always, try to read my Quran. I didn't understand anything, of course, then, but I was very committed, and I learned a lot about Muhammad, about about the prophets and stuff. And then I was very anti-Christian. Whenever I would walk by a church, I would spit at it, and that was my way of showing my disdain for Christianity. And not all Muslims do that. I just want to say that because, a lot of Muslims say we never do that. We consider that sin to do that, but I didn't consider it sin. I used to do it, and I hated Christianity. I didn't hate Jesus. I loved Jesus, but I hated Christianity. And but on the night, the Easter before 1978, Easter of 1978, I was watching Oral Roberts.
Hold on. 78?
Dude,
you don't look that old, man.
Dude, I
was 2 years old. I thought you were like, maybe a year or two older than me or something.
I just had my first Denny's senior citizen meal actually last year. I'm 56, so I went in the first day I would turn 55 because you get the senior citizen meal at Denny's when you're 55.
Nice, living large now. When I see you, I'm gonna take you to Denny's. All right, go ahead, continue. Sorry to interrupt.
Hey, I always get. Every Friday we go there, and I always get the senior citizen meal. You save like $1.30 or something. So anyway, but in Easter of 1978, there was nothing else on TV but an Oral Roberts crusade. I was watching it. As I watched it, the Spirit of God fell on me, and it was just like it says in the Bible. In the last days, I'll pour out my Spirit on all flesh. That's what God did. He poured out His Spirit on me. It was so powerful. It was like Jesus came into the room, and when He came, I knew that He's the Son of God. I knew that He's the Son of God. As a Muslim, I would never say that, but I knew He was the Son of God when He came. And it was like, when He came, it was like He was an old friend, like I had known Him before. It was such a powerful experience. And it's like one thing I said, I don't believe, it wasn't like I was a Muslim and I became a Christian. I was dead and I came to life. And I wasn't dead because I was a Muslim. I was dead because Jesus wasn't in my life. When Jesus came, He brought me to life. That was 41 years ago. And I've been serving Him ever since. And so, my main thing in my life is I want to tell people about Jesus, especially Muslims, because I used to be one. I know what it feels like to be a Muslim. I know how hard it is to be a Muslim in America. Sometimes, when you feel the pressures, but the truth is that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. He did die on the cross for us. And if you accept Him, you're guaranteed eternal life with Him. And I'm living that now, and I just want to share that with everybody. So that's a little bit of my testimony there.
So you're watching an Oral Roberts program on TV.
Yes.
And so so the lots of people in America, we think televangelism, that's kind of silly, but you're saying nope, it can have an impact.
You know what the Apostle Paul said? Everybody knows this verse. He says some people, and I'm not saying this about, I consider him my spiritual father. I love Oral Roberts, and I know all the controversy that there was about him and about televangelism. The Word of God is powerful. When you hear the Word of God, the number one way that Muslims get saved is through the internet and through TV. That's the number one way. There's the number two ways is like knowing a Christian, having been to church, or having heard a song, or having or like miracles and visions that happen. But the number one way Muslims get saved in the world today is internet and television. So it is such a powerful tool.
Yes.
And God gave us this stuff. I mean, the devil perverts everything, but so I believe in TV. So.
Stefan Baptiste asked Husein, do you have a YouTube channel? So I guess they're trying to say, where would they follow you at if they wanted more info?
I probably on my Facebook page, which would be Husein Mashni, and that's where I put a lot of my stuff. And one thing that I have a television program that is on YouTube. I work for an Arabic television program for the last 10 years, and it's called El Fadi with Father Zechariah, who is a preacher, one of the biggest preachers in the Muslim world, to the Muslims, a Coptic priest who's born again and has a $60 million price on his head. And
Yeah, Zachariah Boutros gave me some advice early on when I was just getting started. This is when the Dearborn stuff was going on. Not when we got arrested. It was the year before that when they started slapping us around. Security showed up and started slapping us around, and that video went viral. It was eventually taken down by YouTube after it had millions of views. But we were out in California, and they said, "Hey, we want you on this. We want you on this panel to talk about what's going on in Dearborn." So they stuck us up there with a couple others and Zachariah Boutros. Right? And me and Nabil are up there. We're brand new, right? We're up there thinking. I mean, Nabil had just converted like a couple years earlier and stuff like that. We're up there thinking, what are we doing up here? Why why are we up here? And so that was the first time I saw Zachariah Boutros, and that's when he was breaking it down. He said, "Muslims are asleep. You have to wake them up. You wake them up with a sharp shock." And I was like, "Hey, that's cool. That's exactly what I've been doing." And so yeah, it was some confirmation because I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you know this, Husein, but that's how I was doing things, right? And that's how I was with Nabil when I was talking to him. And that's how we were eventually. We'd sort of, if we're talking to Muslims, we kind of feel them out, because there are Muslims where you definitely want a gentler approach, and there are other Muslims who aren't paying attention to you unless you're coming at them full force. But as I'm sure you know, lots of Christians here in the West will say, "Nope, you're doing things all wrong. You don't ever criticize Muhammad. You don't criticize the Quran. That will just drive Muslims away, and they'll never listen to you. They'll never listen to the gospel, because as soon as you start criticizing Muhammad or the Quran, they run away. They will never listen to you again, and you'll break their hearts, and you'll hurt their feelings, and they won't listen to you." And so everyone's telling me that, and I'm going, wait a minute. Everything in my experience is telling me. Everything in my experience is telling me they listen to you more if you're coming at them hard and blasting away at their prophet and at their book and so on. And then you got Zachariah Boutros, who'd been doing it long before me and had a $60 million hit out on his head, saying exactly
from Al Qaeda. Mm-hmm. From Al Qaeda.
Yeah, who he was saying something very different from what I was hearing from Christians. And if you just look around, at the ministries that are really leading people out of Islam, those ministries tend to be blasting away at the foundations of Islam.
In the West, the gospel is kind of like go into all the world and make friends of all men. Mm-hmm. That's kind of our gospel approach a lot of the time. So, and I really was brought up that way in the church and stuff, but it really took, because when I was a Muslim, I didn't know a lot about Islam. Mm-hmm. I just knew the pillars. I knew what you're supposed to do and all that. But I didn't know too much about this stuff about Muhammad, marrying a 6-year-old girl, having sex with her when she was 9, marrying his daughter-in-law, killing 1,000 Jews in one day, beheading them, and his encounters with Satan, the fact that he thought Jibreel was Satan at first, mm-hmm. and all these things. I didn't know all these things, but then when I started discovering,
hold on, they didn't tell you that. They didn't tell you that when you're growing up and you're going to the mosque and you have a Muslim dad. They don't tell you that Muhammad thought that he was demon possessed and that he tried to kill himself and that he delivered verses that he later admitted were from the devil and that he thought he was a victim of black magic. They didn't tell you all that stuff.
Well, when you hear things like that, or certain things that, for instance, the marrying the 6-year-old girl, mm-hmm. it's put in a positive light. Like, girls at that age, were, in that age in the desert, a 6-year-old girl is much larger and more mature and everything. But, like, I really appreciate the way you do it, just presenting the truth and presenting the gospel, just like, with that John the Baptist type anointing, because, it's not just the Muslims. Everybody is falling asleep and everybody needs to be awakened. And the only way you do it is by presenting the truth. And so I really appreciate the way you've done it. And I always consider your approach very similar to Father Zechariah's, in that you just put the truth out there and put the lion out there and let it defend itself. So
I can only dream of the day when I too have a $60 million bounty on my head.
I've got a $13 bounty, so I'm working on
Man,
it.
if someone puts a $60 million bounty on my head, I might be tempted to attack myself. You know what I mean?
Cash in.
I'll tell.
Father Zechariah tells me that sometimes. He says, "Hey, you need money?" So,
I'll say, look, I'll tell all my friends, Sam, Vocab, John, you guys want to fund your ministries forever? All right, let's go ahead and get this over with. You have a question here from Andy. Andy in the super chat says, for Husein, how do you explain to more secular Muslims? So this is Muslims who aren't tremendously devout, secular Muslims. How do you explain to the more secular Muslims that Christianity isn't the Bosnia genocide or the Crusades or the Inquisition or the KKK or segregation and intolerance to liberalism and multiculturalism, etc. So in other words, how do you explain to secular Muslims that a lot of the stuff you've seen from Christians isn't actually Christianity and the gospel?
first, I tell them to stop watching CNN. No, I'm just kidding. That's where you get a lot of that secular. With Muslims, I quite often I try to take them back to the book. You got to go back to the book and just say, what did Jesus say? There are Christians who've made mistakes, who are making mistakes. I've made mistakes. I've failed. But you got to look at what the book says. What did Jesus say on the Sermon on the Mount? He presented that revolutionary idea, love your enemy. You say that to a Muslim, quite often they're going to laugh at you. Love your enemy. That's a joke. You're so weak. How could you say that? And so what I do is you go back to the source, because that's the issue, is what did Jesus say? Jesus said, love your enemy. Do good to them who persecute you. Pray for them who despitefully use you. And the Sermon on the Mount, that's our Constitution. Now, we fail to live up to it sometimes, but the people who do those things, like the KKK, like the Crusades and all that, they were disobeying the book. They were disobeying Jesus. That's not what Jesus taught. But then I tell them, but then you got to also look at what your prophet taught. You got to look at what the Quran says. You got to see, because they're living in this westernized Islam. It's this American Islam is such a joke. In the Middle East, they would consider a lot of these American Muslims, they don't consider them Muslims at all. They're not even considered Muslims. Like Ilhan Omar, who's in Congress, she supports, all these abortion, supporting all these homosexual things and transgender and all these things. And then all the affairs, she married the guy and all that. She wouldn't be considered a Muslim, And so there's the Western Islam, which is it's not really Islam. It's not what the Quran teaches, but this is the Western concept of Islam. So I go back to the book, say, this is what Jesus said, but this is what Muhammad said. And if you're really a Muslim, for instance, I've been preaching at the mosques. I've been preaching at the mosque. And there was a guy the other day who came up to me. And he goes, oh, we love everybody, and Buddhism and Christianity, we love all of it, and you guys are all wonderful. And I said, you're not even a Muslim. You don't even know your religion. Your book says there is no religion accepted with Allah except for Islam. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times they don't even know their own book, and so you have to go back to the source with what Jesus said, what Muhammad said, what the Bible says, what the Quran says. So that's usually how I approach people like that.
So if you're talking to someone and they say, look at all the horrible things Christians did, you say, hey, well, we take the same approach whether we're talking about Christians or Muslims. You can have Christians who are following their religion and Christians who are not following their religion, just as you can have Muslims who are following their religion and Muslims who are not following their religion. To know who's who, to know what the religion actually is, you got to go back to the source. As Jay Smith says, you got to go back to the book and the man. The book and the man. I want to know, when you bring me a religion, I want to know about the book and the man. Those two things, the book and the man. That's our friend Jay Smith.
That's going to get at least another 50 million views with that type of impressions there. So
yeah, now we are going to get to Muhammad's night journey in a second. You had a question there. This one's from a Hindu historian here. He says, Husein, do you think that Western Islam will become more like real Islam with a larger Muslim population? In other words, as Islam grows in the West, is it going to become more Islamic as in what Muhammad followed?
It already is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just like I just want to say this. It already is. I mean, and that, you know, the good thing is that the media is the wind at their back right now, and the media is encouraging them, and the media loves them. You know, and it's not because the media loves Muslims or Islam so much. The media's issue is that they hate Christians. They hate Christians and they hate Jesus Christ, and because of that, they love anything that, you know, just because of its relation to Christianity. And it's already happening. And they'll go back. You know, this is where, you know, like they used to say, you know, can we reform? There's this big thing after 9/11. Oh, the reformation of Islam, like the reformation of Christianity. Islam can't be reformed. It goes back to their book. And when people go back to their book, when you go back to the gospel, it says, love your enemy. That means that if you haven't been loving your enemy, you go back and you love your enemy. You go back and you obey the book. But with Islam, you haven't been doing what Islam says, you know, slay the infidels wherever you meet them. You go back to your book and you become radicalized. When you become radicalized, you start doing what that book says. And that book, you know, you're going to see Islam take its true form. And so anyway.
And you know, it's weird when you talk about the media hating Christianity, because, you know, on the one hand, I wanted to say, come on, they don't hate Christians. I mean,
yeah, they do.
No, that's what I mean. When I think about it, I think there's no way they could just be that biased. But the evidence is all, I mean, it's every day you see it, right? Like we just had, like these are, I already posted one video. I've got a couple more to post, but a couple days ago, the New York Times posted an article blaming evangelical Christians for the spread of coronavirus in the West, because they're all evangelicals are anti-science. Therefore, they've influenced the president to be anti-science, and that's why the president's not doing anything about coronavirus and so on. And so there was that, and you think, I mean, are these people insane? This is the New York Times. But then in Newsweek, I'm about to post a video on this tomorrow. Newsweek posted an article saying that we, in this dangerous time of coronavirus, we need to seek the wisdom from Muhammad, from Prophet Muhammad. And they're saying that we need to go back to Muhammad's rules about cleanliness and things like that. And it's just so hilarious. They're saying, and Muhammad encouraged his followers to perform washings and stuff like that. And I'm like, have you guys read what he said about cleanliness? You're familiar with this, aren't you? Aren't you, Husein? When Muhammad's followers came out and they said, hey, there's a well here. It's the well of Buddha. That's in Sunan Abu Dawud. And they said, but there's a problem, Muhammad. This is the well that people throw used menstrual cloths, human feces, human urine, and dead animals into. Should we use this for our ablutions? And Muhammad said, yes, water is not made impure by anything. And so that's Muhammad's idea of performing your washings. No one would think this is a good idea if you really...
coronavirus, you know. So.
Yeah, because you die first. You die before you ever got to coronavirus. Oh, my goodness. So yeah, I mean, but notice, the media tells us, hey, Christians are the ones who are spreading coronavirus. That's why we need to turn to the wisdom of Muhammad. And then you've got that My Pillow guy. He jumps up on it, and he's just. Yeah, he's there because the president is giving him a platform, because he said that he's going to convert his factories into production facilities to produce medical supplies. And the president puts him up there at the podium and he says, look, I just want to encourage everyone to read the Bible in these these trying times and stuff. Everyone's freaking out about it. But can you imagine if this had been President Obama and it was after some terrorist attack or some tragedy, and he invited a Muslim speaker up there, and the Muslim speaker was saying, look, I just encourage everyone to read the Quran during these times, read the Quran. These same journalists would have been praising it as so great and woke and open-minded and so on.
It's tolerant.
Gosh, yes. Man. All right, don't get me going. All right, well, I'll be making some videos on that stuff, ladies and gentlemen. All right, yeah. All right, Husein. So we actually have Truth and Courage, who's a Muslim. We had a good discussion yesterday, but Truth and Courage here said, why are they all shocked about the prophet night journey when Allah is all-powerful and all-knowing? Allah can do everything indeed. It is a matter of Iman / faith, David Wood. All right, let me go and I'll just give a couple comments here. One, truth and courage. I agree that if God wants to take Muhammad on a night journey, God could take Muhammad on a night journey. I agree that God has the power to do that. So that's not what's in question here. And I don't know what you're saying by why are they all shocked about the prophet's night journey. I'm not in shock at all. Your sources are a big giant mess. It's not clear what we should trust, what we should not trust. Best case scenario for you, this was some sort of vision, because Aisha said in Ibn Asaq that Muhammad never left his place. He was there the entire time. He never left. So at best, this is some sort of vision. At worst, it's proof that Muhammad's a false prophet. That's why we're talking about. But Husein, we haven't discussed this really before. You said you've been translating some stuff and so on this, and so why don't you give us your thoughts on Muhammad's night journey?
Okay. Well, I translate a lot of Father Zechariah's programs from Arabic to English, and then when he got to this subject, man, I was just like, dude, this is. I was going to do a video. The only thing is, my videos usually get about 20 views, but so I thought I'll go on David's. At least I'll.
Do I need to give you a crash course? Do I need to give you a crash course in YouTube?
Well, sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
we can do that.
My last name is Mashni, so it sounds like Crash. They used to call me Crash.
By the way, everyone, I added, if you refresh your page real quick, because Husein mentioned that you could follow him on Facebook. I went and added a link to his Facebook page in there. If someone could just test that and make sure the link works, because I was kind of trying to do it on the fly here. But check out, make sure that actually goes to his Facebook page, and if it does, then everyone knows how to follow your stuff there. All right, but go ahead.
And everyone will be very happy to know that I have Stairway to Heaven in Arabic there with 30,000 views on it. So
nice.
Make it 30 million for me. So
I have a friend who's Egyptian, and he plays the oud. He plays the oud, but he taught himself to play, and he could just play anything on the oud. And I was like, dude, if you made a channel where you're just playing like classic rock songs, like Classical Gas and all these things, you're playing it on the oud. I said, you man, you'd blow up. Huh?
I play that. I do play Classical Gas.
Classical Gas is awesome.
All right. But anyway, I'm like I've said, I'm Palestinian. And so an important part of the Palestinian identity is the Dome of the Rock, that building that's over in Jerusalem. And it's such a big deal. So many people have died because of that building.
I've been there. I've been there.
I saw your
walked
video.
around it. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been there many times. I've taken my father. In fact, my father who was still Muslim. I used to have to go take him there to the Dome of the Rock and to the Al-Aqsa, and actually take him up there. And I'd have to leave, go to the Church of the Sepulchre, But I've been there many times, and the main thing is that I was there in 2000. In the year 2000, it was Bill Clinton, Yasser Arafat, and I believe it was Ehud Barak. And they were trying to make a peace plan. It was the Camp David peace plan, and they almost came to an agreement. They had like 97% of the West Bank figured out, Gaza Strip figured out, and 1948 Israeli borders figured out. But then they touched Jerusalem, and then they started working until they got to the Temple Mount, to Haram al-Sharif, to the Muslims, which is where the Dome of the Rock is. When they got there, the whole thing fell apart. And the agreement that they came to, I don't know if you remember this, but they said the Jews can have what's under the ground and the Muslims can have what's on top of the ground. And that was the agreement that they came to. But it fell apart when it did that. And I don't know if you remember, but soon thereafter, Ariel Sharon went and walked on the Temple Mount, walked by the Haram al-Sharif, and I'm not saying it was directly the result of it, but it was like the next day, the Intifada began, the uprising. Thousands of Palestinians died in that, and hundreds of Jews were killed. That's where all the bus bombings started. The suicide bombings became real popular. The suicide, all of that began with a walk on the Temple Mount, on the Haram al-Sharif, which is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And in fact, it was even called the Al-Aqsa Intifada. That's the name of it. So many lives have been lost because of this building. But if you look, let me just tell a little bit about, the story, because it comes from a verse of the Quran. And the verse of the Quran is Surah Al-Isra, verse 1. And in Arabic, Subhana alladhi asra bi'abdihi layla min al-masjid al-haram ila masjid al-aqsa. Which is in English, exalted is the one who took his servant Muhammad by night from the Masjid al-Haram to the Al-Aqsa Masjid. And so it's based in the Quran that there was that Muhammad went from one mosque to another mosque. And so the belief is, and this is what I was taught, that I was taught this in school. And I had this story it was so ingrained in me that one night Muhammad got on what's called an Obama. I'm sorry.
You're a troublemaker. You're a troublemaker, man.
It was a Barack. I'm sorry, that joke. I've been waiting all night to tell that joke, man. So no, he went on his Barack. Barack was a donkey that flew, that had wings, and it had the hair of a woman and the body of a woman. Of course, Muhammad liked women. And so this donkey was part woman, part donkey.
Hey, yo. I don't mean to jump in here, but I'm going to forget it in like 20 seconds if I don't say it. And I'm only saying it because you play the guitar. But how awesome would it be if you redid the song Magic Carpet Ride, but Magic Donkey Ride, and it's Muhammad talking to Aisha. Why don't you come with me, little girl, on a Magic Donkey Ride? Huh? You can do that. You can do the whole song. That's how you get famous on Facebook. That's how you get famous on Facebook. You put your two skills together, your guitar skills and your knowledge of Islam. All right, go ahead.
You're either going to get me arrested or killed, man.
How do you think I got 100 million views? I'm a nonstop good idea machine. They just keep pouring out of me. All right, but go ahead.
Anyway, Muhammad rode on this Barack all the way to the belief that I was taught is that he went to Jerusalem and that he got out, he parked the donkey by what's the Western Wall today? It's called the Barack today. And then he went up to the Temple Mount, and then he prayed there, and then he was taken up into heaven. It's called in Arabic Isra Mi'raj. The Isra is the journey from Saudi Arabia to wherever that mosque was.
It's two stages.
And the Mi'raj is when he actually went up to the seven heavens, and he met with the prophets and met with Allah. And then Allah told him, well, have the people pray 50 times a day. But then he went down to Moses, and Moses says, no, make it 5 times a day. I've made religions before, and there's no way people are going to pray 50 times a day. You better go tell Allah that he better just reduce it to 5. So Muhammad went back several times. And anyway, that's the famous story. It's one of the biggest holidays of the Muslim calendar, Laylat al-Isra, So
hang on. As far as what Muslims believe here, and so this is what I'm guessing our Muslim friends here believe. Muhammad was in Mecca. So this is before the migration. This is before the migration to Medina. He's at -1 year in terms of the Hijra calendar. So a year before the migration, Muhammad is in the mosque in Mecca, and then he flies on a magic donkey to Jerusalem, to the farthest mosque, and he ties up his animal, and that's when he's taken up for the Miraj portion, where he's taken up through the 7 heavens, sees a bunch of prophets. They have the big negotiation about the number of prayers between Allah and Moses, with Muhammad as the mediator. And so this is what Muslims believe and celebrate as some sort of historical event that happened. And your average Muslim believes that Muhammad actually physically went. Again, in Ibn Ishaq, Aisha said never happened. He was there, so it would be some sort of vision. But I think you're going to claim, if you've been going through Zachariah Boutros's talks and looking at the source, I think you're going to claim that there might be a problem here with this story.
You know what? I don't think it was a donkey. I think it was a mule. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. That's a bad joke. Okay. Anyway, in Arabic, in Arabic, there's a different word. It's ahmar or jahish, yeah, but el burak, yeah. Anyway, but no, yeah, there's a problem with it, and you know what? But what I think doesn't really matter. You know, what matters is that that if you actually look in the Muslim sources, if you look in the Muslim sources, there's a problem with this. There's some very respectable Muslim sources. I want to get one of the two of the biggest ones here. Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah, he's a very highly regarded Sunni scholar, and very, very highly regarded in the Muslim quarters. Maybe the average Muslim in America might not know him, but go ask your sheikh, because your sheikh knows him. He's very well known. His name is Ibn Taymiyyah. And this is what Ibn Taymiyyah said. This is what Ibn Taymiyyah says. So, it's not what I says that matters. What do even the Muslim scholars dispute this belief and this building that so much blood has been spilt over? This is what he said. If I could just give really quickly, no, let me just go ahead and read it and then I'll explain it. It says, when Abdul Malik was one of the Umayyad leaders of the Umayyad Empire, okay, ruled over the Levant. The Levant in Arabic is Sham, which is Syria, northern Iraq, Palestine, and all that. And there was conflict between him and Ibn Zubair. Ibn Zubair was in Mecca. He says people used to go perform pilgrimage in Mecca and meet with Ibn Zubair. And he wanted to keep people from going down there. So he built the Dome of the Rock and he covered it with covered the stone in winter and summer to make people visit Jerusalem. So he's saying the reason the Dome of the Rock that we have today was built was because there was conflict between Abdul Malik, who was an Umayyad leader, and this was after the death of Uthman, the third caliph. This was after the death of Uthman, the third caliph, and so he built this to keep people from going to Mecca because he didn't want them to meet with Ibn Zubair, who made himself like the caliph in Mecca at the time. And so, and listen, and Ibn Kathir, you've heard of Ibn Kathir. This is what Ibn Kathir says. Ibn Kathir says, because Abdullah ibn Zubair controlled Mecca and was speaking to the pilgrims who were going there, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan built the Dome of the Rock. So the Dome of the Rock was built as an alternative to Mecca because he was saying, hey, I'm the caliph over here. I'm the caliph. And then, but then Ibn Zubair in Mecca was saying, no, I am. And this led to what's called the Fitna Thaniya, the second conflict, the second civil war in Islam. The first one was after the death of Uthman, and then there was this one. And this caused a split. And so to keep people from going to Mecca, because they could meet with Zubair there and to hear what he has to say and hear his propaganda and everything, he says, I'm going to make you another place to do pilgrimage. And the new place is the Dome of the Rock and an Al-Aqsa Mosque. And then so he built this. And you know what? They put curtains around it like they did in the Kaaba. They put curtains around it. And they had people walk around it, circumambulate, just like they did the Rock in Mecca. They did it as an alternative to Mecca. That was the original. And if you look at look at history, all of history tells you there was no Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem in the time when Muhammad allegedly made this trip.
And by the way, this is an extremely important point here. That I just want to make sure we really emphasize this, that there was no mosque in Jerusalem there during the time of Muhammad for him to travel to. But going back to what you were talking about earlier, so you're saying that what you just said about Abdul Malik and not wanting people to go to Jerusalem, I mean, not wanting people to go to Mecca because they would encounter his rival for Islamic authority. They didn't want him to go there where this guy's going to be talking to them, convincing them to join him. He set up the Dome of the Rock as a rival pilgrimage site. And You're not saying this according to Christian sources or Jewish sources. You're saying this is Ibn Kathir and Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Kathir, the most respected Sunni Islamic commentator in history, and Ibn Taymiyyah, the granddaddy of all Salafis.
Yep. Yep. The first,
well, that's,
you know, well, he has another nickname. I'm not going to say it here out of my respect for my relatives, but he has another nickname. But okay, I want to tell you what this is. This is Sa'ad-ud-Din al-Hilali. This guy is a professor of jurisprudence. As a professor of Islamic Sharia at Al-Azhar University in Egypt. Al-Azhar University, you know, I know it's not perfect to say this, but kind of like the Vatican of Sunni Islam. This is like a it's like the chief, you know, the head educational institution of Sunni Islam. And this guy is a professor of jurisprudence, and he's always on TV. He's very well known, Dr. Sa'ad-ud-Din al-Hilali. Listen to what he says.
I wonder if he's related to the Hilali from the Muhammad Hilali from the Hilali Khan translation of the Quran. I don't know. Sounds like a relative. I mean, his name's Muhammad Taqi-ud-Din al-Hilali.
Oh,
so yeah. Anyway.
Well, you know, we are all 25th cousins. So, but anyway, just kidding. Anyway, bad joke. Okay. Anyway, this is what he said. He said, a person is more important than the Kaaba or the Al-Aqsa. The Al-Aqsa Mosque was not in Muslim possession at the time of the Prophet at all. There was no Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem at the time. Mm-hmm. This is a Muslim professor of Islamic jurisprudence. He said this on TV. He said this on TV in Egypt. There was no Al-Aqsa Mosque. And so, you know, you hear these things, and then you see that historically, everywhere you read historically about when was this mosque built. You know, I just got some things here to read. Okay, I want to tell you what some people say about when it was built. This is Ibn Kathir. This is Ibn Kathir. Okay. And if you're Muslim and you don't know Ibn Kathir, go ask your sheikh. And shame on you, you should know who Ibn Kathir is. Okay, and the book is called Sha'ab Mirat al-Zaman. And he says, and in it, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan started to build the Dome of the Rock on the holy, it's called Bayt al-Maqdis in Arabic, which is like the holy house, and also the building of the Mosque of Al-Aqsa, and continued his building in the year 73 AH. That's the Hijrah, 73 years. That's 74 years after Muhammad allegedly made this flight to Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. That's when they started building it. And Jalaluddin Asyuti, again, very big. He's the one who did Asbab an-Nuzul, very, very famous book. Every Muslim scholar knows Jalaluddin Asyuti. He said that the commencement year was 688 AD, which was about 69, the year 69 in the Islamic calendar. And then one last one. It says, and some of them identified the year that it was built, Al-Aqsa Mosque, as 72 AH, which would have been 691 AD. And when did Muhammad die? Muhammad died in 13 AH. So this was like 60 years after Muhammad died that they even started building this thing. And so, you know, when they say that he flew on this donkey from Saudi Arabia to you know, if you look at what it says in the verse of the Quran, you know, الذي أسرى بعبده ليلة من مسجد الحرم إلى مسجد الأقصى. That's from the Mosque of Al-Haram to the Mosque of Al-Aqsa. And it's talking about a building. Mm-hmm. And that building wasn't in Jerusalem. It did exist. There was a Masjid Al-Aqsa. There is a Mosque Al-Aqsa, but it's not in Jerusalem. And these guys, you know, I don't know if you want to say anything about it, but then I could talk about. Because we've got some comments from our Muslim friends. Little side note right here. Courageous Truth said, "Hi David, you're the bro, and congrats my friend on 100 million views. I just wanted to ask, how come you focus more on Islam than atheism?
Yeah, courageous truth. I'm actually more interested in talking and having discussions with atheists and so on. That's just my background. But in college, my best friend is a Muslim, so that started me off on Islam. When Nabil became a Christian, I actually thought, cool, I'm done with Islam, because I just wasn't that interested in Islam. But somewhere along the way, I realized almost everyone who goes into apologetics starts dealing with atheism, and very few people, especially back then, there are more now, but back then there were very few people who wanted to get involved with criticizing Islam and actually going after the foundations of Islam. And back then, I'm talking like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, back then I would see people say, I really have a heart for reaching Muslims with the gospel and so on. And, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to, talk to them about, why Islam is false and Christianity. I catch those same people 6 months later, they don't want to talk about Islam at all. Because during that time where they actually went out and started talking to Muslims and so on, they, of course, have all kinds of abuse hurled at them. They start receiving online threats and so on, and they just get to the point where they don't want anything to do with that, and they go do something else. And so I kind of decided early on, well, I'm kind of built for this, right? I'm kind of built for people, threatening me and threatening to murder me and threatening to, rape my wife and rape my mother and burn my mother alive and kill my kids and all the other things. That stuff, I'm different. That doesn't push me away. That makes me come at your ideology even harder. And so I figured we're perfect. We're a perfect match, me and Islam, locked in battle to the death. We'll see who breaks first. I bet it ain't me. All right. But Husein.
Yes.
This is the classic Muslim response to what. So notice we talked about what we talked at the beginning about, the story that Muslims believe, right? That Muhammad, he was at the mosque in Mecca. He's at the mosque in Mecca. He takes his magic donkey ride, and he goes to the mosque. He goes to the mosque in Jerusalem, where now is, of course, Al-Aqsa Mosque and so on. This is just a common Muslim belief. Now, then we come and point out. So this is what's been going on in recent years. Then we come in and we say, actually, we know there was no mosque there at the time. And then you get the Muslim response, right? This is from Sabir Abdullah. He says it doesn't have to be a physical mosque building. Now, as far as I am aware, he is correct as far as the term that is used. The term that is used means a place of prostration. And you could just, people could gather to prostrate, in any area. There doesn't have to be a physical mosque building. Is that much correct? And then I'm going to point out the problem. Yeah. So,
right. Masjid, yeah. So the word sujud comes from the word masjid. Masjid means a place to prostrate. Sujud means prostrate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Sabir is correct that, yeah, this technically doesn't have to be a building, because if it did claim that there's a building, they'd have a problem, because there was no building there. We know there was. We know that building was not right there in Jerusalem where Muslims think it was. Those buildings were built later. And the buildings that were there much earlier, like Solomon's Temple and so on, those had been long destroyed. So there's no building there. The problem is, we know from a ton of Muslim sources in their most trusted collections of sources and so on, that this was supposedly a building. Muhammad talks about entering the building. He talks about the number of windows and doors and stuff on the thing. He's answering those kinds of questions, but he's talking about a building. So notice, Sabir, it's clear that you're using this to try and avoid the fact that your prophet is talking about a building, because you seem to know ahead of time that there was no building there. And yet when we go to your point is that, the word that's used there in the Quran and so on, it doesn't have to be an actual physical building. Problem is, now you have to throw out all the additional sources because they describe it as a building. They describe it as a building. When people give the details on Muhammad's night journey, he got to a building. He went into the building to pray. It was a physical building. So you already know it's a problem. Do you see why we're on this topic? All right, we can actually go through some of these sources, but say whatever you want. Say whatever you want, Husein, and I'll toss some sources in here along the way.
If I could also, just along the line with what that guy is saying, and another issue, which I think is what the Quran really means. I think, there's another way to look at this verse, which is, it is what the Quran originally means when it says about Masjid al-Aqsa, the Mosque of Al-Aqsa, because there was a Mosque of Al-Aqsa. Muhammad used to go there quite often. One time he spent 5 days there, and it's in a place that is very close to Mecca. It's a place called Ja'rana. It's like 18 miles north of Mecca. Or if you want kilometers, in case you're European and or you're in, you don't know the American measurement because you're like in Australia or in England, it's 27 kilometers from Mecca, and it's called Ja'rana, and it's on the way to Medina. And Muhammad went there, and there is in this place, this area, and and there's two mosques in this area. There's two mosques in this city called Ja'rana, and the Muslims know about this, and the sheikhs know about this, and they're lying to you. And those two mosques, one of them is called Al-Adna. The other one is called Al-Aqsa. Al-Adna means the near one, the close mosque. And the people called it that because, can you guess why they called it that? Because it was close. And then they called the other one Al-Aqsa, which means farther away, because it was farther away. And so, you have the closer and the farther. And so those are the two mosques in this city. It's called Ja'rana. And if you look, there's a historian named Yaqub al-Fassawi. And this is what he said. And he went out of Ja'rana one night, and it was performed what's called the Umrah, the small pilgrimage, and returned and remained in it. And other words didn't move from there and from where, and anyway, that's a little bit confusing. But there's others. There's Al-Ma'arifat al-Tariq by Yaqub al-Fassawi. Al-Azraqi, who's a very well-known historian. He says, narrated by Mujahid, that he performed the pilgrimage in Ja'rana. From here, the Prophet went forth, and I don't know the first time that this mosque on a hill was taken, and it was called Al-Aqsa. So you had those two mosques, the close one, and he went from Mecca after the Umrah. The Umrah was in Mecca, Al-Haram. The first mosque mentioned in Surah Al-Isra is Al-Haram. That's the one in Mecca. But then he went from there to Al-Aqsa. He did. And it's called Al-Aqsa, and it's there in Ja'rana, not in Jerusalem. That's the one that they're talking about. So that's another way to look at that too.
So would the claim, if we were to try and put this together with our knowledge that the Muslim sources were just massively tampered with along the way, and our earliest detailed biographical source is Ibn Ishaq, which comes over a century after the time of Muhammad. And then the sources that Muslims actually use, you're talking about 200 years after the events they're reporting. So would the claim be this, that what the Quran is talking about with Muhammad's night journey is that he's taken on some sort of mystical journey from the close mosque that's right there beside him to another mosque that's 18 miles away and would have been familiar to the Muslims of the time. And that's what it meant in that context. But as Muslims kept embellishing stories and coming up with all kinds of miracle stories along the way and so on, embellishing things, then at some point they found the need to point towards Jerusalem and say that is Al-Aqsa. Is that correct?
Yeah, that. In fact, the reason I held this up is because if you look at the interview with this guy, Sa'ad ad-Din, the teacher of Sharia law, he knows Islam better than any Muslim in the West Coast, in the Western Hemisphere. And that's exactly what he said. That's exactly what he said. He said not only did they, because the mosque wasn't originally even called Al-Aqsa. It was just the alternative to Mecca so that the people wouldn't go to Mecca. He wanted, Abdul Malik wanted to keep the people in the north so that they would stay loyal to the Umayyad Empire instead of going to Ibn Zubair. So it wasn't even called Al-Aqsa. Later on, they tagged on the name Al-Aqsa because that way you add a holiness, and it even says this. It even says this, that they added the holiness of a Quranic verse. You see, now they have a masjid, they have a Quranic verse to go with this. And so the whole story began there. And then you start adding the donkey and you add all those things that happen with it. So, and they even, yeah, but, you know, so he said exactly what you just said. So.
Little side note here. Well, it looks like we're at 732 people. Fred Sanford asked Fred Sanford asked, if the live stream gets to 1,000, will Husein sing us a song? I'm asking for a friend.
Do you want Stairway to Heaven in Arabic?
All right, we got to get to 1,000. Just so everyone knows, we're not getting to 1,000. We're not going to be on here too much longer, and so maybe if we were on here for a couple hours or something, we might get up there. But going from 700 and something to 1,000 in 20 minutes or so would be a pretty massive leap. But yes, Husein will sing a song. That's a guarantee. All right, now now check this out. Sabir again says, sources, David. Let's see the sources. And he put 3 laughing smiley faces like, it's so hilarious that you claim there are sources. Now, the sources I were talking about were sources along the lines of, this was a building, not just some open area where people were bowing down to prostrate. So I happen to have a ton. If I had known this was going to be an issue, Sabir, I could have selected them carefully beforehand. But if you'd like me to do a video on that, I am happy to do it. Let's go through a couple. All right, let's start with our earliest source, of course, Ibn Ishaq's Life of Muhammad. You can go to page 181 to 182. Ziyad bin Abdullah al-Bakai from Muhammad ibn Ishaq told me the following. Then the apostle was carried by night from the mosque at Mecca to the Masjid al-Aqsa, which is the temple of Aliyah, when Islam had spread in Mecca among the Quraysh and all the tribes.
Aliyah was the name of Jerusalem.
Yeah. So the temple, he goes to the temple in Jerusalem. His companion Gabriel went with him to see the wonders between heaven and earth until he came to Jerusalem's temple. In his story, Al-Hasan, that's a companion of Muhammad, said, the apostle and Gabriel went their way until they arrived at the Temple of Jerusalem. So the Temple of Jerusalem sounds like something that seems like it would be some structure, but maybe you're saying that everyone's mistranslating things again and so on. Let's go ahead and read a little more. Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 6, page number 233. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, the Prophet said, when the Quraysh disbelieved me concerning my night journey, I stood up in Al-Hijr, the unroofed portion of the Kaaba, and Allah displayed Bayt al-Maqdis before me, and I started to inform them, the Quraysh, about its signs while looking at it. So he's seeing something. Now, is your claim that they're just seeing that he's just seeing an empty ground where people gather to prostrate? I mean, he's talking about Allah showing him so that he could describe it. It'd be very odd if he just said, yes, Allah is showing me a bare piece of ground. Sahih Muslim, number 309. It is narrated on the authority of Anas bin Malik that the Messenger of Allah, may peace be upon him, said, I was brought al-Barak, who is an animal white and long, larger than a donkey but smaller than a mule, who would place his hoof a distance equal to the range of version. I mounted it and came to the temple, Bayt Maqdis in Jerusalem, then tethered it to the ring used by the prophets. So there's a ring that the prophets used to tie up Barak there. I entered the mosque and prayed in it, and then came out, and Gabriel brought me a vessel of wine and a vessel of milk. I chose the milk, and Gabriel said, you have chosen the natural thing. Then he took me to heaven. So Muhammad entered the mosque and prayed in the mosque, and then he came out. If this is just a patch of ground or something like this, this is all very, very strange. Likewise, we have in Ibn Majah here. So this is Ibn Majah and Tirmidhi. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's messenger said, the prayer of a person in his house is a single prayer. His prayer in the mosque of his tribe has the reward of 25 prayers. His prayers in the mosque in which the Friday prayer is observed has the reward of 500. His prayer in the mosque of Aqsa, i.e. Bayt al-Maqdis, has a reward of 50,000 prayers. His prayer in my mosque, the Prophet's mosque in Medina, has a reward of 50,000 prayers. And the prayer in the sacred mosque, the Kaaba, at Mecca has a reward of 100,000 prayers. So it's giving you the different values of praying in these. Notice, this is Muhammad talking about praying in the mosque, and he's drawing the parallel between, you've got the mosque in Jerusalem that we pray in, and you've got the mosque in Medina that we pray in, and you've got the mosque in Mecca that we pray in. And here's the different values of the prayers in these different mosques. It sounds like whatever's in Jerusalem is comparable to what's in Medina and Mecca. All right, so Husein, go ahead and share your thoughts here. I'll get some additional sources ready. The one I need to look up is the one that says that the mosque in Mecca and the Al-Aqsa Mosque were built 40 years apart, right? That's the one I like, because now he's talking about, not only was there a building, it was a building that was built around the time that the Kaaba was built, that the mosque in Mecca was built. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, well, one issue that I kind of want to talk about a little bit about too was about Omar. When Omar, the third caliph, second caliph, went to Jerusalem after the conquest of Jerusalem, he went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Mm-hmm. And when he went there, the patriarch, when prayer time was there, told him, go ahead and pray here in the church. And he said, no, if I pray here, it's a very famous story, that you always hear about it. He said, if I pray here, then the Muslims will come and take over the church and everything like that. So he went and he prayed, near the church. And where he prayed there is a mosque today. It's called the Mosque of Omar. It's right there. You pass by it on your way to the Holy Sepulchre every time. It's right there. It's right next to the falafel stand there. If you know it, it's called the, just kidding. No, it is by the falafel stand. But there is a mosque there today. And, if there was a mosque, even in the time of Omar, he would have gone to pray there where the Prophet prayed, but he didn't. He went and he prayed at this little place which is a mosque today. So this is just proof that there was nothing there at that time, and just logically you would deduce that there was no mosque there. It was built later by the Umayyads, as a replacement, as an alternative to Mecca because of the second fitna, civil war within Islam. Mm-hmm. So,
yep. And so there's no mosque there. And yet, according to Muhammad, he's clearly talking about a mosque. Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 2, number 281, narrated Kuza. I heard Abu Sayyid saying 4 words. He said, I heard the Prophet saying the following narrative. He had participated in 12 holy battles with the Prophet. So this is a good authority. Narrated Abu Huraira, the Prophet said, do not set out on a journey except for 3 mosques, i.e. Al-Masjid al-Haram, the mosque of Allah's apostle, and the mosque of Al-Aqsa, the mosque at Jerusalem. Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 4, number 585. Narrated Abu Dar, I said, O Allah's apostle, which mosque was first built on the surface of the earth? So what's the first mosque? He said, Al-Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. I said, which was built next? He replied, the Mosque of Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem. Wow. So the mosque in Jerusalem was built 40 years after the mosque in Mecca. I said, what was the period of construction between the two? He said, 40 years. 40 years. So it was built and it's still there. So he's saying, hey, you want me to tell you about when the mosque in Jerusalem that we all think I'm talking about, when that was built? It was built 40 years after the mosque in Mecca. So there is a mosque there. There is a mosque. And what do you have? You have Muslims in the comment section. Ha ha ha, lol, show us the sources. Oh my goodness, can't believe you're making this kinds of claim. Let me just read. We should probably be wrapping up here in a second. I want to read a couple passages from Ibn Kathir. So this is Ibn Kathir. This is Ibn Kathir's commentary on Surah 17, verse 1. Right. That's the verse of this night journey. Mm-hmm. All right. So this is Ibn Kathir's commentary on Surah 17, verse 1. So from Al-Masjid al-Aqsa means the sacred house, which is in Jerusalem, the sacred house which is in Jerusalem. And he includes some historical background. I remember being in Al-Hijr. So he's quoting a hadith here. I remember being in Al-Hijr, and the Quraysh were asking me about my night journey. So it's Muhammad. I remember being in Al-Hijr, and the Quraysh were asking me about my night journey. They asked me things about Bayt al-Maqdis that I was not sure of, and I felt more anxious and stressed than I have ever felt. Then Allah raised up Bayt al-Maqdis for me to see, and there was nothing they asked me about it, but I told them about it. And I remember being in a gathering of the prophets, and so he goes on to tell the story. Notice, you've got the Quraysh asking Muhammad, tell us the details of this place, right? Because supposedly people would know what he's talking about. People who had seen this mosque, supposedly, if we take these sources seriously, and they're asking, and then Muhammad can tell them all the details because Allah is showing the mosque to them. Very hard to do if it's just a piece of ground. What are you talking about? It's a piece of ground, blah, 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 right? Ibn Kathir continues, the truth is that the Prophet was taken on the night journey when he was awake, not in a dream, even though Aisha says it was some sort of vision, his body never left. And this is how the Muslim sources contradict themselves regularly. Not in a dream. And he went from Mecca to Bayt al-Maqdis riding on al-Barak. When he reached the door of the sanctuary. Oh, it doesn't have to be a physical door, just like it doesn't have to be a building. Okay, so it's an imaginary door on an empty piece of ground. Okay. When he reached the door of the sanctuary, he tied up his animal by the door and entered. Entered what? This blank piece of this bare piece of ground, apparently, where he prayed. Then he came back down to Bayt al-Maqdis, and so this is after his little journey. Then he came back down to Bayt al-Maqdis, and the prophets came down with him, and he led them in prayer there when the time for prayer came. Some claim that he led them in prayer in heaven, but the reports seem to say that it was in Bayt al-Maqdis. In some reports, it says that he happened when he first entered. So there's a conflict of when he led the other prophets in prayer. When he first entered, or then afterwards when he entered again. So Sabir, I'm kind of grinning here, Husein, because this is what we deal with every single time we go live. Yeah. I say, here's what Islam teaches. And the Muslims say, lol, liar, can't believe you're making that up, liar. And then I quote 20 sources to them to show them that what I said is true and what they believe is completely wrong about their own religion because they never bothered to read their sources. And then they tell me I'm misunderstanding everything. I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, it only works in Arabic. You can't get any of this except in Arabic, blah, 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 blah. And night after night after night, they don't know what their own religion teaches. They don't know what our religion teaches. And yet, that doesn't stop them from talking about both nonstop. And this is what confuses me, right? Like Hindu historians here, right? People ask me all the time, David, why don't you make videos about Hinduism? I don't know enough about Hinduism to feel confident enough to share my thoughts with the world. I don't like sharing my thoughts unless it's something I study. For some reason, we get to the Muslims here in the chat and their religion, and people who have no clue what they're talking about on any topic that we're talking about, nevertheless, fill up the chat with their comments and call everyone who actually reads the sources of both religions, they call us a liar for quoting a bunch of stuff that they've never heard because they've never studied. This is amazing stuff.
You know, I've been doing programs with Father Zechariah since 2011. And in Arabic, he says what you just said. He says it over and over again. It says, you call me a liar. You say, I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm reading your sources to you. And you don't know what your sources say. Over and over and over again. It's the same issue. But there are some who really are, they're going to take this serious because, you know, there's people who die for this building. There's people who, so many are willing to die for this building today. For this building, Al-Aqsa. That's why I wanted to do this. They literally are willing to die for this building and for the story that is around it. And so some of them, based on what they heard today, they're going to say, you know what? Before I die, I want to find out if this is true. And I believe that God's going to use this to touch some lives. And so thank you so much for allowing me the honor to come on here. And if I could I just say one thing to my relatives?
Absolutely.
Just because I know what my relatives and people from my village think about me. I'm known as the kafir, the the infidel. And I know you think, why does he hate us? Why does he hate Arabs? Why does he hate Muslims? I just want to tell you guys that I don't hate you. I love you. I love you so much. And I want you to know the truth. I know I was a Muslim like you. I believed like you. But the Lord Jesus gave me life. I was so empty and miserable. I was so empty and miserable trying to do everything that Allah wants and never being sure if I did enough. But then when Jesus came, he brought me to life. I was dead. He gave me joy. He gave me peace. And I know you guys want peace. You want joy. And I want you guys to know also that these things that you believe, these fairy tales that we were taught and are willing to die for, they're fairy tales. You need to know that even the Islamic sources contradict themselves. It's not something worth giving your life for, but something that is worth giving your life for is the Lord Jesus. That's why I'm doing this. I love you. I don't hate you. So anyway, I just want to say that.
Yeah, and notice this goes along the lines of what we were saying before, something I bring up very frequently. You're sitting here telling Muslims the truth, right? Having to tell them the truth about their own religion because their leaders never share this with them and they never bother to study it for themselves. You're actually giving them correct information because you want them to be able to come to an informed decision, to make an informed decision, a decision based on accurate knowledge. And because of this, you hate them. But their leaders, the ones who lie to them nonstop, fill their heads with complete nonsense.
Who know the truth and lie to them.
Yeah. And who spend their lives keeping them in a state of ignorance and deception. They're the ones who love them and the ones who are worthy of respect. This religion just absolutely reverses everything. One final comment from Sabir, just because it's a perfect illustration of everything we've been dealing with. So we read all the passages about the mosque that Muhammad went into. That mosque, he said, was built 40 years after the mosque in Mecca. Sabir says that hadith, and he includes the 3 laughing emojis. That hadith is talking about the mosques built by Abraham, peace be upon him, not in the time of Muhammad, peace be upon him. There are literally other hadiths that talk about it. So notice what he says here. The mosques. So we talked about the mosques. He says that's talking about the mosques built by Abraham, not in the time of Muhammad. So he calls them the same thing, right? He calls them the same thing. And so so Sabir here is telling us that the mosque in Mecca, so the Kaaba, that wasn't built by Abraham, right? Because he's saying it's talking about those ones, not the ones that existed during the time of Muhammad. So you're talking about different structures, right? Well, Muhammad doesn't seem to know that these are different structures, right? He talks about going and entering this building. When he talks about when this building was formed, he said 40 years after the construction of the mosque in Mecca. That's the building he entered. It has a door. He entered it. He went to the prophets there. He can describe it. He knows what the building looks like. And you're laughing. What are you laughing at? You're laughing at your own prophet. Over and over again, all we do is sit down here and say, this is what your prophet said. This is what your prophet said. This is what your prophet said. And your response, lol, liar, I can't believe this is so dumb. Dude, it's not us you think is a joke. It's your prophet you think is a joke. Congratulations. We agree with you. Now leave Islam and believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. All right. Thanks, Husein, for joining us here. And welcome back anytime. All right, so catch y'all later. I will be on tomorrow night again, Lord willing, with someone who has coronavirus. So he'll be here answering your questions about coronavirus. He's a Christian apologist. This is Sean Hurst, who runs the channel Mixed Martial Apologetics, but he unfortunately has coronavirus. So we're going to get him on there, talk a little bit about what he does, but we'll be talking a lot about how the testing works, what the symptoms are, because not just him, his daughters have it and so on. So we'll be talking and we'll see how this what this experience would be. We hear about the people who are going to the hospitals and so on, but we'll get the inside scoop. So see everyone tomorrow, and got a lot coming up.